right. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the RevOps Podcast, brought to you by Revenue.io.
Hey, you got it right this time.
I'm going to start working that in here. I haven't introduced you yet. Be quiet. So this week, we're going to do a bit of a special episode. I'm a huge Scott Galloway fan for anybody listening. I've talked about it a few times. Prof G. I'm a huge fan of the Prof G podcast. And one of the things he does is called Office Hours, where people submit audio clips of them asking questions, and he just answers them off the cuff, and they're awesome. And my dream is to get my question featured. Prof G, if you somehow listen to this, please respond to Jordan from Running Springs, California. Anyways, the highest form of flattery is imitation, of course. So we are going to absolutely steal this, talk to our lawyers, but we are going to steal the office hours concept today. Because we've been getting quite a few good questions, and we obviously do the This Week on LinkedIn segment, and we answer one, but I'd like to have a few dedicated episodes to answering more and encourage listeners to send us some more questions. So we're going to do an office hours episode where all of us have questions that we've brought ready to go. We're going to read them off and answer them, and that's going to be the topic for the day, and I'm super excited about that.
Are you going to introduce us yet, or what? What's going on?
What are we, chop liver?
No introduction. Your co-hosts, Jonathan Stevens and Brandon Redlinger. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
Howdy.
Hi.
You guys have both interrupted 4 times during the introduction. I work so hard on these introductions, you guys have no idea. I make them up off the top of my head every single week. So I'm going to start because I have 2 questions, and I know you guys each have 1 because you're never as prepared as I am, and that's the way to live. And so I'm going to do one of mine, and then you guys can do yours, and then I'll do my last one. Deal?
Deal.
Cool. All right. Question number 1 from Alex. I'm on the job market, and I'm interviewing for RevOps leadership, senior manager / director level roles. I'm hoping you can tell me what would stand out to you and compel you if you were hiring for this type of role. Which I think is a great question because we've never actually talked about this. We've never actually said, like, if I was hiring for a RevOps person, here's what I want to see. Here's the background that I want, right? And I obviously have a lot of passionate thoughts about the question, but I'd love to hear your guys' take.
Well, it depends. That's my answer. I'm just kidding.
Just stop it. Stop it.
That's it. I thought you liked that answer. Not for me, thank you. I think it depends on just the stage of the company you're at. But if it is like, I would venture to guess is it like an earlier stage company? It's a smaller-ish company, or do we think it's a more established company?
He's interviewing, so probably some of the above, right?
Probably a little bit of both, yeah.
Yeah, so cover both.
Okay, so I do like someone that has a varied background, right? They've done a little bit of this, a little bit of the other thing. You know, maybe they were in marketing for a little bit, maybe they were in sales. Because RevOps supports all the different functions, you need to know how all those different functions work, right? Like in our episode with Rachel Nezon, or did I say that right? I don't know. I didn't practice as much as you did. I got it. Okay, cool. Nijan.
Najad, great episode. Everybody go listen to it. She's wonderful. She's smarter than the 3 of us put together. So go listen to that episode.
True story.
Yeah. Anyways,
like she's talking about being able to support all the different functions and being able to understand them before you actually hand it off. So when she's talking about, building her BizOps or RevOps team, it's like, I want to be able to do this before I can hand it off to someone. And I think the same value is enable to for you to be able to support those people, know what they've done, right? So I think, 1, that's what I like to look for. And then 2, I just like to have good conversations with people during interviews. And I don't want another run-of-the-mill interview. Ask me good questions. Ask me smart questions. Know a little bit about my background. Know the company, because I'm going to ask you, why Revenue.io? What makes you interested in this specific role, too? Like, have good questions or good answers for those. And then just have good, creative, curious questions. I will judge you based on the quality of the questions that you ask me.
I will judge you. But no, the varied background is super important, right? Especially for a RevOps role, just being able to understand the things and actually show it by being able to speak to it is super important. And for what it's worth, if I was interviewing for a RevOps role, I would think twice if I'm interviewing and I'm not speaking to anybody outside of like the sales umbrella in general, because if I'm not talking to somebody from marketing or CS as a part of that process, it's probably not really a RevOps role. And they don't really care if I can speak those things, and I'm not going to use those skills that I have, and I want to use those skills that I have. So yeah, varied background, super important. Ability to speak to the roles that you'll be supporting, all of them, super, super important. Jonathan.
Yeah, I think absolutely what Brandon said, having the ability to speak to the roles and ability just to be nimble, to be able to be adaptive. And you can find that out in a lot of ways, but I think it's really important to just be nimble in what you're doing, not only with the tools, but also with the people that you're with, so that you're working with. Hang on, I fucked up. Let me tell you what happened. So Frank was meowing at the door, and I missed the question, and I thought I'd be able to wing it. I couldn't wing it. I had to text Ariana to grab Frank, and then I totally missed the question. I thought I'd pick up the question through Brandon's answer. I have no idea what the question is.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
So the question was from a person who is interviewing for senior management / director level RevOps roles, and they want to know what they should include in their resume or in their application process that would make them stand out to a hiring manager. I don't think being nimble is the thing that you want to. Yeah, I was sitting here thinking, is he going to land this plane or?
No, that plane crashed.
Up in planes. Yeah.
Office hours, off to a strong start. All right.
So maybe, all right, take it to me again, restate the question, and then we'll go.
And then we'll just all of this in. We're 1,000% leaving all of this. So, question is from Alex. I'm on the job market and interviewing for sales ops leadership roles, senior manager, director level. I'm hoping you can tell me what would stand out to you and compel you if you were hiring for this type of role. And sort of the assumption I'm making is he's looking for like, what would I want to see in a resume? What would I want to see in an application, right? That would make him stand out to get me to say, I want to talk to that person.
Yeah. So understanding of the tools necessary for the job, being able to see that you've got a wide tool set under your belt, you've been able to work in different tools, even if you're not going to necessarily work at all of them on a daily basis, having an understanding of them is critical to that job. Also, just being able to say that you've managed a successful sales team, that you've got a sales team behind your back and you're not just coming in managing a sales team for the first time. That's going to be big. And just a good communicator. I think that's one of the most critical pieces of that role, is being able to communicate up and down.
Yeah, totally. Like, middle management is a hard role, right? You have to be able to communicate upstream and downstream, which is they're both very specific skill sets, being able to manage up and manage down and manage laterally. And relationship building and communication, super, super important. And yeah, like 1,000%, you have to prove that you can use a tech stack and have successfully ran an operations team before if you're applying for those roles, because if you can't show those two things in your resume, then I'm definitely not going to interview you to do that role. That's 1,000% accurate. And so, showing that through metrics, by the way, super valuable, because that shows me that you're metrics driven, which is one of my things that you should include if you want to catch my attention, is you need to be metrics driven and have a deep understanding of what those metrics mean. And if you include metrics in your resume, at least I know you're driven, and then during our conversation I can find out if you have a deep understanding of what they mean and what you would do if they were broken and that sort of thing. I can put you on the hot seat like I do you guys every week, and these poor candidates, man, they have to deal with that. Think about that. That's what this is it. This is their life when they're interviewing with me. But I love the answer, Jonathan. So
and being able to kind of speak to challenges too, I think, is important. To be able to be humble, be able to say what you've learned. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, own some failures. Like, that shows leadership to me. Like, if you're like, hey, I tried this and it failed. Like, great. Let's talk about that. Like that's tell me that. Like, that's wonderful. What did you learn from it? What did you do differently after the fact? What will you do in the future when you come across that same problem? Those are the things I want to know. I want to know those failures, because that shows leadership. It shows growth. And that's the person I want to work with, right?
Yeah. To me, that's more important than anything, because it shows that the person can adapt and they don't buckle under pressure, and they don't buckle when they fail.
A desire to learn all the time, right?
Totally. And by the way, when I interview marketers, I look for stats too. Like, show me stats, show me figures.
Yeah.
It's not just RevOps roles, right? But I think it's especially important for revenue operations or marketing ops or sales ops or whatever. Like, like what percent increase over what period of time? How big of a team did you manage? Like, how many? Like, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Like, I want all of that in your resume.
Totally. And so things that I included in my answer are Salesforce and tech skills, super important, obvious, right? Everybody should know that. Enablement background. If you have a background actually teaching people things, to me, that shows that you have great communication skills and great leadership skills, because enablement's a very hard thing. And if you have any experience in that, it's wonderful. Business analytics, metrics driven and understanding of the metrics, experience supporting reps and multiple teams and diverse reps. So like CSMs, AEs, marketers across the board. I want to see that you have that experience working with multiple functions. So that goes back to Brandon's point, the varied piece. And then leadership and problem solving. Honestly, problem solving to me is like kind of the number one thing. If you're a problem solver and you're missing some of the other things, that's not a problem because you'll solve it, right? Like it's that simple. And Alec, our producer, put this little sweet nugget in the chat, which is jam pack your resume with buzzwords to get past the AI screening filters. Wow. It's all downhill from there.
There's some truth to that.
You're not totally wrong. There's a lot of white space on that resume where some white words will get picked up by that AI. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Shows an understanding of the technology. Let's say that.
Yeah. I think on the enterprise side, you definitely need some words in there that'll get you past the first screening, but smaller companies maybe don't have that.
And typically, just so people know, the words that you want to include are probably included in the job description.
On the job description, exactly.
So you might want to mirror those buzzwords a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy pro tip.
Yeah, there's a fine dance because some people will just look at that job description and write a custom resume each time per job description. I don't know if I'd go that far. I'd just try to make the best resume you can that will encompass a lot of the job descriptions you're after.
Skills section is a really powerful thing on a resume because you can change the skills section with buzzwords really rapidly to make it get past that filter for sure. Yeah. Cool. I love the answer. All right. Well, let's go next.
All right, I'll go next. I got a question from James. It is account-based marketing related. Well, it's an account-based marketing question, but I think it applies to revenue operations strongly. Okay, my organization is just getting started with account-based marketing. I know one of the first steps that you strongly advocate for is doing targeting accounts correctly. So how do you target the right accounts, right? The internal debate that we are having is, should I go after the accounts that I want to close, or should I do a lookalike audience for the accounts that we have been closing? So I think the question is, like, do I just put a wish list together?
Yeah,
right?
Or do I actually use data to inform whether or not I'm targeting the right accounts? I think we have a pretty strong answer on this one. Use the data-driven accounts, 1,000%, right? And like, here's the thing, though. I would put a caveat on this because, first off, if you have this question, go listen to the John Miller episode because he answers this question like 1,000 times in way better ways than the three of us can. The guy is a legend. Second, use the data-driven accounts. Absolutely use the data-driven accounts. But there is a caveat, and it's an important caveat. Reps like to target a couple of big, sexy logos. And you should let them target a couple of big, sexy logos, even if the data doesn't support it. Because one, that makes them feel empowered and have control over their own day-to-day, which is really important for sellers. And two, they might get one. They might get one of those, or one of those accounts might get warm enough to be in your ABM list. And that's going to be great for you as a business because they can prove that you can go to different segments. You can go upstream into different enterprise things. Like maybe all of your data supports only SMB, but you want to let a couple reps go after enterprise. And maybe they can show you that in the future, your data might support enterprise a little bit better, right? So I would say it's not that it depends. This is a one-time thing where I'm saying it does not depend. Use all the data, all of your accounts. If you're choosing 100 accounts or 800 accounts, whatever that is, use all of those accounts and then give reps the leniency to target 5 more on top of that. Let them pick 5 of their wish list accounts that they think are great. And they might have relationships there already. There's things you don't know about. There's intangibles that go into that process for an AE that you don't want to limit. You don't want to put them in such a narrow lane that they don't feel like they have autonomy over their own territory and segment. So let them do it and embrace it. Like honestly, even put marketing budget against those if you can. Like why not? Just include them in your overall ABM strategy.
Mm-hmm. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think not only from the fact that it helps with the motivation, but also it helps to diversify. If you put too much of your energy into one focus, you may be missing a whole other industry that you could be targeting that you're not. So
Totally.
you always want to at least have a few outlier variables that you go after to see if they can become part of the focus target group.
Totally. And the other thing you can do, and I'm going to like sort of spill the beans here on us internally. I don't think any of our AEs listen to this anyways. If they do, they'll message me probably after this. But if you say, hey, we want to ABM, we're going to do 800 accounts because we've done our capacity planning. Again, go listen to the John Miller episode. He walks through how to capacity plan for ABX in a very powerful way. If you're going to do it and you say, hey, we're going to do 800, pull 1,200 and ask your reps to pick the ones they want to target. Because you have 1,200. And if you let them pick those 800, that's a lot of autonomy. And they also know things that you don't know and the data doesn't show, right? Intangibles are still a really powerful thing on top of that. So it's a really easy way to give reps some autonomy over their own workflow and let them sort of choose what they want to target, which will still result in the same thing. You still have your 800 accounts, and they're still of the 1,200 that you think are great. So you're not down anything.
And then bonus, your reps are going to be more motivated because they feel like they had more control over what they're going after, as opposed to just being directed down. Hey, go after this.
Exactly.
Go after this.
Suddenly, ABX is a purely collaborative process because marketing is working on it, sales is helping choose accounts. Like everybody's been building it together from the ground up, and it'll be more effective as a result.
Yep. And then there's no, marketing picked these, that's why it's not working, or sales picked these, that's why it's not working.
I mean, I'm still going to say that. Kidding. I've never said that. I've never said it.
Yeah, and that last point is exactly actually what I told him. It's like, so I actually wrote a blog post on the demand-based blog. I think it's like how to ABM like a boss part 4 targeting accounts or something like that. And I had laid out exactly what we do. And we do start with a close won analysis, right? I want to understand what are those things that make a company a good profile for us. And then let's start to layer on things on top of that, like intent and target accounts out there, first-party engagement data. And then, like you said, Jordan, I want to also layer on intangibles. So maybe my executives connected with their executive.
Yeah.
Or, like that is super powerful.
Right.
And then I weight those, I score those, then I stack rank them from 100 down to whatever the bottom score is. And I say, okay, sales, you actually get to choose, 5, what did John call it? Not tier 1, tier 2. It's
1-to-1, 1 to few.
1 to few. Thank you. It's like 5, 1 to 1.
I remember.
Yeah, at the time we were still doing tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
One of us paid attention on that podcast.
One of us, one of us did. Yeah, exactly. So I actually did send him that article. So maybe we'll include it in the show notes here too. But I laid out exactly.
Do some promotion for yourself. That's fine. Whatever you want to do.
That's exactly. That's what we're here to do. And promote demand base, right?
Yeah,
they're a sponsor.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
They are after today, that's for sure.
Exactly.
I thought this was going to be like a slam dunk do this question, and it is, but we talked a lot more about it than I thought. So it actually turned out to be a pretty good question. I like it.
Heck yeah.
Jonathan, what's your question?
Yeah, I got an interesting one. I get this a few times, but I had somebody reach out and say, I'm looking to get started in marketing operations. What kind of skills do I need to be attractive to hiring managers?
You just parroted my question? Is that what just happened?
It's a similar question.
I mean,
it's a similar question.
And it was easy because it was already kind of done already.
It was easy because you just made it up is what happened. What happened? All right, read it again.
I'm looking to get started in marketing operations. What kind of skills do I need to be attractive to hiring managers? So if somebody just starting out, they want to figure out what kind of skills do they need on their resume to make sure somebody's going to hire them.
Marketing operations specifically is HubSpot Pardot experience for sure. One of the two, right? Like you can't exist without one of those two systems, basically. I would say absolutely a background in marketing, like having done marketing somewhere, somehow. By the way, I love operations people, marketing or otherwise, that have an SDR background. I think that's super valuable to just understand what it takes to actually convert a lead, because it's really easy to say, hey, I'm going to work in marketing or marketing operations, and like my job is to create leads. But like to actually understand what it takes to take a lead and turn it into a sales opportunity and then turn it into a closed deal makes you a better marketer. It makes you a better marketing operations person. And so if you can show me that you understand that, or at least have some exposure to it, then that for sure stands out to me in the marketing operations space. And beyond that, it goes back to the same things of the other question. It's like problem solving and the ability to own your failures and being data driven. Data driven is probably even more important in marketing than anywhere else. And the other one that I would say that's more important there, ability to take feedback, because it's so important for marketing to continue to iterate really, really fast on like different campaigns and different connections and different lead routings and all sorts of things. That feedback needs to come in a really fast way, and actually a person that solicits that feedback is much better suited for marketing operations than a person who is waiting for it to be delivered.
Totally. And what I would say, marketing operations specifically, when I'm interviewing those candidates, a lot of what I'm really digging into is how well do they understand the funnel? How well can they do problem solving? Like I love to give them an exercise. There's a few exercises that I love to give them. It's like, here is, of course it's dummy data, but here's our funnel. Something's wrong with our MQLs. How would you analyze that? I also love to give them just a giant spreadsheet and say, hypothetically, we just got this list from a trade show. Yeah. Now clean this list and then send it back to me so that I could theoretically upload it to my CRM. So
spreadsheet skills, so important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, it's like, a lot of people are like, I'm pretty good in an Excel, and then I send them this, and then they can't do like simple dedupes or like it's crazy. Yeah. So I would say one of the skills that you need to put on your resume and actually go learn, like really good at Excel. Like I don't know too many marketing ops people who aren't in Excel, even if they have a demand base background or they know Salesforce well. Like you're still working out of spreadsheets.
Totally. Like I don't trust any ops person who doesn't know spreadsheets.
Exactly.
Like, you haven't been forced to live that life, you're not ready. Like that is, because it is a hard thing that every ops person goes through at some point, which is running a lot of things out of spreadsheets. It's super, super important. And it forces you to understand how to manipulate data, right? To
exactly.
do the actual things, which is super powerful. I teach Jonathan things in spreadsheets all the time.
But not only manipulating the data, but actually drawing insights from it too, right? I think that's really the next level.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's definitely evolved into a more data-focused role as time has moved on.
What was your answer, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think you guys nailed a lot of it.
You didn't even answer the question. You just
he's waiting for us.
Well, I'm waiting for your answer so I can give him a better answer.
Yeah, all right. That's what Jordan does with our answers too.
I usually take a call with him, just so you guys know. Usually, probably over half the time that I get a this week on LinkedIn question, I actually will take a call with them so I can because typically I want to understand the question a little more before I would give a response. And so often I will just set up like a 15-minute conversation. Let me ask a couple questions, then I can give you an answer, and that's usually better for me. So if anybody listening, if you send me a this week on LinkedIn question, you might get me to be on a phone call with you. Maybe not. Maybe you don't want that. That's fine too. Don't send me a question then.
But to get my answer in, I'll say understanding data and data relationships between different objects, especially as they pertain to your CRM. So most people, that's going to be Salesforce, but if you don't have a deep understanding of those data relationships in Salesforce and how they come together, you're going to be walking an uphill battle right out of the gate. So that'd be where I'd start. Secondly, obviously you need to know marketing automation. You need to know how to put together workflows or journey builders, or whatever the tool calls it. I don't think you need to know every tool. You could learn Pardot, you could learn HubSpot, you could learn Marketing Cloud. If you learn one, you've got a pretty good understanding of them all. So that's probably the second most important to me.
Nice. I like that. By the way, Alex says that my call is worth $1,000 an hour. And for everybody, I bill in lawyer increments still. It's 6-minute increments. So 6 minutes is, rounded up. That's what I'm saying. Rounded up. There you go. But no, I love the answer. Cool. Anything else we want to do on that one before I go into the last
The other thing is, what do you guys think about website development being in the marketing operations role? Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. And I think originally it started out very heavy in the web development space. And obviously, marketing operations is going to be involved in some capacity on the website. But it does seem like that's kind of branched out, and web development's already kind of becoming its own thing.
If I was applying for a job in marketing operations and I had that background or didn't have that background, I would go to their LinkedIn and see if they have web developers on staff. Because if they have them on staff, that background's not important. True. Not as important, right? And if they don't have them on staff, probably super important to highlight. Like, it's a pretty easy, quick research thing to do on any business you're applying to is like, is this skill important to them? Because if they have 2 web developers on staff and it's a 100-person company, you're never touching that. Like, and if you are, you can learn it because you have 2 people there that can teach you. And so it becomes less important. But so I think I'm going to give the it depends answer on this. It depends on who they have on staff.
I do think it's one of those kind of nice to haves. It can be a differentiator for you if you're up against someone who's very similar background but don't have it. But I mean, given that you have that background, I'm going to guess you have a very strong opinion on the answer that might differ from ours. It's the most important thing ever. Right? No,
I definitely agree. I don't think it's a necessary thing, but it's definitely something that helps. And I think ideally you're going to have somebody dedicated as a developer like we do internally, and then your marketing operations role more works as an augmentation of that role as opposed to also taking on that role.
Love it. Cool. All right. You guys ready for the last question?
Let's see.
All right. The last question, a bit more fun on this one, is somebody messaged me. I think it's so important to keep the human side of the podcast going. I know nothing about Brandon, period. I assume you, Jordan, are into hiking since your packs were in a video clip. I know Brandon is passionate about white walls and pricing. There was no question here, but this was just a message that I received. But I thought that it would be fun for us to do an age-old get-to-know-you exercise called 2 Truths and a Lie.
Okay.
And everybody knows that 2 Truths and a Lie is, anybody listening, I think you both do probably, because I think we do it here quite a bit, is you say 3 statements and the people around you have to guess which are true and which 2 are true and which one is a lie. And so I can go ahead and start because you guys are going to have to think about yours, I'm sure. Although you might have them canned. I don't know. But for sort of a fun way for people to get to know us. And we'll pause so that our audience can also guess which one's the truth and which one's a lie. And then they can all be wrong. So, and if anybody gets it right, ping us and let me know that you got it right. Cool. So my 2 truths and a lie. I grew up on a cattle ranch in rural North Dakota. I'm a volunteer firefighter in the San Bernardino Mountains where my cabin is located. And I do trail upkeep and am a volunteer trail manager at an arboretum and lead nature tours for visitors.
Okay, I think I have my answer.
Jonathan?
Alec I think I have it.
Unmuting and muting again. You ready? All right, Brandon. What do you think's what are the lie? What's the lie?
I'm gonna say number 2, the firefighter, volunteer firefighter.
Jonathan?
That's also the one I want to go with.
That is the lie. I was a volunteer firefighter, actually, though, until I was around 22 years old. But I was a volunteer firefighter many, many years ago. I'm an old man now, so I don't want to do that. There's also a lot of fires in California. I don't need that on my stress level right now. But the other 2 are true. That is the lie.
All right. It's a tough one to come cold on. We have to think of ours while we're going. I almost want it. Brandon, are you ready? Do you have 3?
Let's see. Give me 1 sec.
Well, the audience is learning you neither are quick on their toes. So.
They should know that already.
We're really just cluing them into the realities of what it's like to run this podcast for me.
Okay, let's see. I got mine.
All right, do it. Let's go.
I was the captain of my college hockey team. I can solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute. And I visited 47 of the 50 states.
I think I know my lie. Jonathan, you can't just stare at the mic.
I'm sorry, I was thinking, okay, give me that. Give me those 3 one more time. I've got my 3 now, though, at least.
Okay.
Oh, our poor audience, man.
Okay. I was captain of my college hockey team. I can solve Rubik's Cube under a minute, and I visited 47 of the 50 states.
Okay, I got mine.
And Alex got to put his in the chat too.
All right, so I think number 3 is the lie.
Alex says the states. Jonathan says
I think it's 2. 'Cause that sounds hard.
Cube?
the states is a lie. Yeah.
Okay.
Woo! Jonathan knows nothing about you. I'm your best friend on the podcast. I just assumed that you were like, this is gonna sound like an insult because it is. I just assume you're that guy that like watched YouTube videos until you could figure out a Rubik's Cube fast enough to like impress people as a party trick. Like,
It's a pretty easy party trick. I mean,
I know,
Rubik's
but,
Cubes
like,
are pretty damn easy.
you are that guy, aren't you? You are.
Well, so like,
And then you tell them about the books you've read. Like,
I tell them about the book while I do the Rubik's Cube without looking, you know?
Love it.
by the way, Alec totally got mine wrong. Alec, wow. He thought I grew
The
up on
only one to get
farm.
wrong?
He got it wrong.
Which one did he guess?
He thought it was the last one.
For Jordan. He thought Jordan
trail
was.
upkeep at an arboretum. And I do actually do that. He thought that was the lie. Heaps Peak Arboretum in the San Bernardino Mountains. I do volunteer there. I've like done some like digging out trenches to make the trees, not get too saturated, that sort of stuff, and do some trail tours.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
Damn it, I screwed up already.
All right, we'll give you a sec. We'll give you a second. We'll edit
How
out
fast
any.
are you on the How fast are you on the Rubik's Cube while Jonathan does this? Because it's got to be faster than Jonathan coming up with 3 simple.
Actually, I think there's a Rubik's Cube right there.
All right, let's
Rubik's...
do it. Let's bring it out. Let's do it on video while we wait. Let's see if you can get it before Jonathan's ready. It'll be like the Jeopardy theme song.
Okay, I got you now.
All right.
I was an audio engineer. I grew up in Kansas, or I lived in Boston, Massachusetts.
God, it's tricky because the Kansas thing, like I know you lived there, but did you grow up in Missouri or Kansas? Because Kansas City is in Missouri, not the state of Kansas,
It's
which is a
actually in
tricky
both.
thing. But the Boston one, you've never mentioned Boston before. And so, let me think about this one. Brandon, you know?
I'm going to say Boston is the lie.
Alec, what are you putting in there?
Alex is Boston.
Alex says Boston. Oh man, I feel like it's.
I know maybe that's a trick question.
It's Kansas because he lived in Kansas City, Missouri. It's Kansas. That's my answer.
It's the Boston.
You just drove across the river every day? Is that what this means?
So I grew up in Kansas. My family lived in the suburbs on the Kansas side. So there's a Kansas City, Kansas, and a Kansas City, Missouri. It's the most confusing thing in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody gets
the
it
Kansas
messed
City,
up.
Kansas is much smaller than the Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs are located in Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so like if you look at it like in LA, like Orange County is kind of like the Kansas side.
So you're
of
like
Kansas
you're
City.
like
Like
snooty Kansas.
there are parts of where I grew up that were very like that. Not where I was, and it's gotten worse.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
This explains a lot. He's just up here.
But yes,
I
much
know
prefer the Missouri
the
side.
silence is actually judgment. Is not what I know. Cool. Alec, our producer. Do you want to do two truths and a lie?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Alex says, I can't believe he's making me read these.
His audience sucks anyway. Yeah,
Alright. I used to produce movies. I was stabbed in Vietnam. I have the ability to suntan. It's not 3 lies. I know you don't have the ability to suntan. So
I know. Yeah, exactly. It's got to be that
and
one.
you definitely weren't stabbed in Vietnam.
I love this.
I guess I'm gonna say Vietnam. Maybe you think you can tan? I don't.
Dude, I'm just saying.
How do you know it's not like Call of Duty Vietnam? So it's technically true.
I'm gonna. He says suntan is the
Yeah.
lie.
All
Are you
right.
stabbed in Vietnam?
What? Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna have to hear an
Long
explanation of
story.
that one.
All right, long story for another episode. Alec was stabbed in Vietnam, and we're gonna end there. And this is the first.
I think we learned that we're all terrible liars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. All right, well, I guess thank you guys for humoring the first Office Hours podcast. Everybody listening, send us your questions, and if you can, record them in audio, and we will play them and then answer them on the podcast, because that will be way
fancy.
more fun than us reading them off. And it'll make Alec work a whole lot more because he has to edit that together for us, which is just enjoyable for me to do. So if you can do that for me, follow us on LinkedIn, give us 5 stars on the podcast, and thank you all very much for getting through the first Office Hours episode. See everybody next week.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Bye, guys.